In the far northeast of South Africa, the vast Kruger National Park extends across an immense area of approximately 20,000 square kilometers, making it one of the largest and most significant natural reserves found anywhere on the entire African continent. Kruger National Park is made up of interconnected ecosystems, where its vast landscapes gradually transition from wide, open grassy plains to scattered woodlands and dense, impenetrable vegetation. Its terrain is also traversed by perpetually flowing rivers, such as the well-known Limpopo River and the Crocodile River. These waters then form seasonal pools and wetlands, which in turn attract hundreds of different species of creatures. Kruger is defined by a clear seasonal climate. Its summer, from October to March, is hot, humid, and marked by heavy rainfall, while winter, from April to September, is cooler and much drier. Significantly drier and less hot, which allows the savanna's landscape to transform, with water sources appearing or drying up depending on the season. The reserve is predominantly covered by a rich vegetation of grasses and semi-rare trees, including species like acacia, marula, and mapan. These plants provide an essential and vital food source for the herbivorous animals that inhabit the area, while also offering crucial shade and effective concealment for both predators and their prey, for both of them equally. Kruger is home to more than 500 distinct species of birds, a remarkable 170 different types of reptiles, and an impressive array of over 170 species of mammals, in addition to thousands upon thousands of various insects, beautiful butterflies, and countless termites. Its lands are home to large populations of elephants, rhinoceroses, buffaloes, giraffes, and antelopes, forming the backbone of the ecosystem that predators depend on for survival. The park is divided into distinct sub-ecological regions, each supporting its own forms of life shaped by soil composition, vegetation, and available water sources. In the south, lush grasses and wide pastures attract deer and zebra herds. In the central regions, rocky hills and widespread mopan trees define the landscape. Further north, towering trees and seasonal rivers shape the environment. This natural diversity doesn't just grant Kruger visual beauty, but also establishes an intricate, cohesive ecosystem that allows for the emergence of varied animal behaviors and highlights the dynamic interaction between predator and prey. The reserve becomes a unique and magnificent stage where nature unfolds in its most pristine, untouched form. The rich and diverse vegetation of Kruger National Park forms the backbone of its intricate ecosystem, providing essential nourishment for herbivores, while also offering shelter, camouflage, and protection, ultimately shaping how both predators and prey are distributed throughout the reserve. Across the vast expanse of Kruger's territory, three primary vegetation systems are found: the expansive open grassy savanna, areas of scattered bushland, and dense dry forests. These distinct ecological systems intermingle and overlap, their distribution determined by the specific nature of the soil, prevailing rainfall patterns, and the precise degree of topographical gradient. The savanna constitutes the predominant vegetation cover across most regions of the park and is composed of seasonal grasses that grow luxuriantly and densely during the wet season. Then they wither and significantly recede during the dry season, thus exposing the underlying terrain and greatly facilitating the movement of predators as they pursue and track their prey. Among the most prominent grasses are Themeda, Bancroft, and the sharp rhodesia grass, which together form a crucial primary food source for a wide range of herbivores, including gazelles, zebras, wildebeest, and buffalo. As for the thickets, they are primarily composed of shrubs of medium height that spread quite densely throughout the central and southern sections of the park, and among the most well-known examples of these are the mopan tree, easily recognized by its distinctive bilobed leaves, is highly adapted to withstand extreme heat and plays an important role in the ecosystem by providing a reliable and nutritious food source for both elephants and giraffes. The acacia tree is an ecological symbol in Kruger, with its long branches, which are densely covered in thorns, and its small, delicate leaves. It consistently provides permanent shade and offers essential shelter for various birds and small mammals. Furthermore, it naturally forms distinct barriers that effectively separate the different distribution areas of the park's diverse animal populations. In the northern parts of the region, where the soil is richer and more moist, tall trees grow in abundance, including species such as the well-known marula and jackalberry trees. It is distinguished by its production of rich, abundant fruits, which serve as a powerful magnet for numerous animals, including monkeys, wild boars, and various bird species. Even majestic elephants undertake extensive journeys, traveling great distances specifically in their quest for these sought-after fruits. The plant life isn't limited to just trees and grasses, but it also encompasses rare medicinal plants, as well as various flowering species that attract insects, playing a truly vital role in pollination, seed dispersal, and the renewal of life within the garden. The vegetation map in Kruger changes from season to season. In summer, grasses cover the ground and trees flourish. However, in winter, the landscape is dominated by shades of brown and gray, and water levels in some of the ponds recede, exposing the intricate root systems beneath, forcing the local wildlife to change their usual paths and granting predators a significant additional advantage in their hunting. Some of the trees, just like the baobab tree, which stores water within its enormous trunks to survive periods of drought. Other trees rely on dispersing their seeds through the wind or by means of animals that consume the fruits and subsequently excrete the seeds along with their waste. The vegetation stands as a vibrant, living record of the region's natural history, with each plant reflecting a unique cycle of life and collectively helping maintain the delicate balance of this remarkable ecosystem. The black rhinoceros. In the far northeastern reaches of South Africa, deep within the sprawling expanse of the Kruger National Park, a magnificent creature silently makes its way through the thick, dense bush with its ever-watchful eyes and a powerful, solid body that hints at both immense strength and cautious vigilance. It is the black rhinoceros, a powerful symbol of unwavering strength, cautious vigilance, and persistent survival in the face of the most extreme dangers. This creature is considered one of the rarest large mammals in Kruger National Park, and despite its elusive, quiet nature, its presence remains a powerful indicator of the health and balance of the savanna ecosystem. Despite what its name suggests, the black rhinoceros is not truly black, as its skin typically ranges from a deep dark gray to an earthy, muddy brown tone. Its name is attributed to the need to distinguish it from its larger relative, the white rhinoceros, not its actual color. It is characterized by a hooked mouth and a prominent, movable upper lip, which functions as a precise, muscular pincer, aiding it in plucking branches and leaves and granting it the capacity to selectively browse tree leaves rather than graze on grasses. An adult male black rhinoceros typically weighs between 1,200 and 1,400 kilograms. While the female is a little smaller in terms of overall physical size, she is notably more reclusive and far more sensitive to any form of intrusion or close proximity. The black rhinoceros is known for its strictly solitary nature. It prefers a solitary life and shows little social behavior, except during mating or when a female is raising her young, which may stay with her for more than 2 years. This animal moves through dense, overgrown bushes and prefers rough, uneven, often muddy terrain, where it can dig with its powerful feet or sturdy horn to reach plant roots or access much-needed moisture. It feeds on tree leaves, tender branches, bark, and buds, and is known for its selective foraging, favoring specific plants such as mopane, acacia, and various combretum shrubs. It spends the hours of the day lying down within the thick shadows or in the mud pits, where it takes a bath in the mud as a behavioral ritual which helps him to moisturize his skin and to repel insects and to cool down his body temperature. It typically emerges either during the twilight hours of dusk or in the very early morning. It carefully navigates its way through the dense undergrowth, always keeping its ears in a state of constant, heightened alertness, because it relies much more heavily on its keen senses of hearing and smell rather than its vision. Despite its enormous size, it is considered one of the most nervous animals and quick to react. Any sudden sound can drive it to attack. Many instances have been recorded of swift attacks on cars or people who approached its territory without noticing its presence. It has 2 prominent horns, with the front horn often reaching lengths of 50 centimeters or more. These powerful horns are used for digging and for effective self-defense in the wild. They also play a crucial role in removing thorns and in intense, competitive conflicts between males. The confrontations between males can at times become quite fierce. These often involve aggressive headbutting and powerful blows delivered with their front legs. The triumphant male then asserts its dominance and defines its territory, while the defeated individual is forced to withdraw to a new region, which can extend for many tens of kilometers. The female's gestation period typically lasts for approximately 450 days, and she will only give birth to a single offspring. It is born weighing approximately 35 kilograms and depends completely on its mother for protection and guidance. She nurses it for several months, then it begins to practice picking tree leaves through her and imitates her movements in digging or clearing the thickets. After 2 to 3 years, the young one gradually begins to assert its independence, but it remains close to its mother until it is fully capable of protecting itself, and then embarks on its journey to establish its own sphere of influence. Within Kruger National Park, areas such as Lubombo and North Shingwedzi are among its most important habitats. These regions are defined by dense, lush vegetation and extensive muddy terrain. Such conditions are especially favored by this species. However, the most serious threat to the black rhinoceros in Kruger National Park is not natural predators or harsh conditions, but the relentless and devastating impact of illegal poaching. Its horns, made of keratin-like human fingernails, are sold on illegal markets at extremely high prices. This makes the animal a constant target for ruthless poaching gangs. This continues despite strict and extensive protection measures enforced within the reserve. Kruger's management has significantly increased aerial surveillance across the park. They have also begun installing tracking chips on some individuals to monitor their movements. In addition, drones are now actively used to track and investigate any suspicious activity. Rapid response units were also established to protect its rare populations. Despite this, safeguarding this giant creature remains a complex task, requiring a delicate balance of security, scientific research, and environmental management. The black rhinoceros does not fight for control or dominance, but rather for its very survival, for its right to roam freely within its natural habitat without being hunted down because of the horn it carries upon its nose. A sighting of him today is considered quite rare, But every single appearance he makes within Kruger National Park represents a brand new triumph for nature and for one of the savanna's most ancient inhabitants, the African spotted cat. Deep within the shadows of tall, swaying grasses and along the edges of seasonal swamps in Kruger National Park, a remarkably agile and graceful creature moves almost unseen. It has a slender body, long, delicate legs, and upright ears that resemble sensitive radar dishes. These features allow it to scan its surroundings while remaining nearly invisible in its environment. It is the serval. This medium-sized feline possesses a physique that skillfully blends the swift agility of a leopard with the precise cunning of a fox. Its weight, remarkably, never exceeds 20 kilograms, yet it is endowed with exceptional prowess in camouflage, keen auditory perception, and the art of a sudden surprise attack. The serval possesses a distinctly slender body, which is entirely covered by a beautiful yellowish golden fur. This coat is adorned with numerous irregular black spots, and its back is marked by prominent longitudinal stripes that extend all the way to its relatively short tail. Its ears are large and perfectly round and can move independently to detect even the faintest sounds. It can pick up movements hidden within tall grass or even those beneath the surface of the ground. This cat is widely distributed throughout Kruger, but it distinctly prefers areas with dense, tall grasses situated in close proximity to various water sources. These include your temporary or seasonal swamps, the lush banks of rivers, and other moist, heavily wooded areas. Its main activity occurs at night, emerging shortly after sunset to hunt and search for prey. It remains active throughout the night, moving silently across its territory. Before dawn, it disappears into a shallow burrow or beneath dense cover to rest. Servals rely on sharp hearing and focus rather than speed, striking their prey with a swift, sudden pounce. It can jump vertically for a distance exceeding 3 meters, to snatch a bird from mid-flight, or to pounce on a small rodent hidden amidst the tall grass. It feeds on rodents, frogs, small birds, lizards, and large insects. It is widely known that this creature consumes on a daily basis as many as 10 small prey animals during the course of a single night. Its hunting style is characterized by an intense, focused concentration. It stands perfectly still for several minutes, then moves slowly, abruptly freezing when it detects the slightest sound or movement, before it pounces with astonishing precision and speed. The serval leads a solitary existence. It is solitary and avoids contact with others, even members of its own kind. Males establish clear boundaries for their territories by spraying urine or by scratching trees, and they avoid direct confrontation with one another by listening to the distinct calls they emit during mating season or as a warning signal. The female typically enters her mating cycle once or twice each year, following a gestation period that lasts approximately 75 days. She then gives birth to a litter of 1 to 3 young in a secure den, often found within tree hollows or nestled among rocks. The mother nurses her young for several weeks, then gradually teaches them how to hunt. After about 6 months, they separate and begin independent lives, each establishing its own territory. Although the serval is not considered globally endangered, its sighting in the wild is quite rare due to its extreme shyness, its nocturnal activity, and its remarkable ability for complete concealment. In Kruger, this cat plays an important role in controlling rodent and insect populations, helping maintain the delicate balance of the ecosystem despite its small size and solitary nature. The serval is one of Kruger's most elusive inhabitants, silent and rarely seeking attention or dominance. It moves as a quiet hunter under the cover of darkness, where calm prevails and survival depends on pure instinct and skill. Masai Mara National Reserve is one of Africa's most famous wildlife sanctuaries. Located in southwestern Kenya, it is part of the Greater Serengeti ecosystem, spanning roughly 1,510 square kilometers. The Maasai people, who named the reserve Mara for the mottled appearance of its landscape, have lived in the region for centuries, herding cattle alongside wildlife. From low rolling hills to the steep Syria escarpment, the Mara offers a variety of scenery. Every year it draws visitors worldwide, with its sweeping savanna plains, rich ecosystems, and the extraordinary spectacle of mass animal migrations. As a protected area, the Mara balances conservation of its biodiversity with tourism and traditional land uses. Geography and landscape. The Masai Mara lies in southwestern Kenya's Narok County, bordered on the south by Tanzania's Serengeti National Park. It is part of the East African Rift System. The western edge of the reserve is defined by the steep Syria Olulolo escarpment, which is an outcrop of the Rift Valley, extending over 50 kilometers in view. This dramatic escarpment stands over 300 meters above the plains below and offers sweeping vistas of the reserve. In the north and east, the protected area gives way to a mosaic of communal lands and conservancies held by Maasai pastoralists. Three main rivers flow through the Masai Mara. The Mara River, with its tributaries the Talek and Sand rivers. These perennial rivers divide the reserve into seasonal grazing zones and ensure water is available throughout the year. The Mara's terrain is mostly open savanna grassland, with scattered groves of trees and shrubs. To the southeast lie gentle hills and occasional kopjes, rocky hills, while to the west the land rises sharply toward the escarpment. In lowland areas along riverbanks, lush gallery forests of fig, doom palm, and other trees line the waterways. Away from rivers, grass species dominate. The grasses include red oat grass and other bunch grasses that grow up to 1 to 2 meters tall in good rains. Shrubby plants such as acacia, croton, and the aromatic Tarchonanthus, sneezewood scrub, appear in interspersed patches. Mara's name, meaning spotted, reflects the pattern of bush and tree clumps set against open plains. True forests are rare, but small pockets of African bridleia and riverine woodland occur along watercourses. Elevation in the reserve ranges from about 1,500 meters above sea level to over 2,100 meters atop the Olulolo escarpment. This altitude moderates temperatures. Daily highs on the plains are usually in the mid-20 degrees Celsius range, with nights often dropping to 12 to 18 degrees Celsius. It has a semi-arid climate with 2 distinct rainy seasons each year. Rainfall is seasonal and varies across the park. There are 2 rainy seasons, the long rains from March to May, and the short rains around October and November. The eastern Mara is comparatively drier and averages roughly 800 millimeters of rain annually, whereas the western areas near the escarpment receive around 1,200 millimeters per year. Historical evolution and the rise of conservancies. While the Masai Mara is globally recognized today, its boundaries and management have evolved significantly over the last century. Early establishment. The Mara was first gazetted in 1961 as a much smaller wildlife sanctuary, covering only about 520 square kilometers, primarily the Mara Triangle. Over the next decade, it was expanded and formally designated as a national reserve in 1974. The Conservancy Model. Today, the core reserve is buffered by the Greater Mara ecosystem, which includes roughly 15 privately managed Maasai conservancies. These border zones add over 1,450 square kilometers of protected wilderness. Community leasing. In these conservancies, Maasai landowners lease their parcels to ecotourism partners. This model provides direct, sustainable income to local communities for education and healthcare. It also allows visitors to enjoy exclusive activities that are strictly prohibited in the main reserve, such as guided walking safaris, off-road wildlife viewing, and night game drives. The ground beneath, volcanic ash and black cotton. The staggering density of wildlife in the Masai Mara is not merely a product of its rainfall. It is directly dictated by the complex geology hidden beneath the grass. The Mara is essentially a massive, slow-moving nutritional engine, powered by the ancient, violent history of the Great Rift Valley. The volcanic mineral fallout. Millions of years ago, the tectonic tearing of the African continent produced immense volcanic activity. Winds carried colossal clouds of volcanic ash across the plains, laying down a foundation incredibly rich in essential minerals, particularly calcium and phosphorus. The nutritional anchor of the migration. This ancient ash is the invisible driving force behind the Great Migration. The high mineral content is pulled up by the shallow root systems of the savanna grasses. When hundreds of thousands of wildebeest arrive to calve, they are not just looking for green grass. They are specifically seeking out these mineral-dense pastures necessary for lactation and rapid calf bone growth. The mechanics of black cotton, vertisols. A significant portion of the Mara's flat plains is blanketed in a specific, highly reactive clay soil known scientifically as vertisols, but colloquially feared by guides as black cotton soil. This soil contains a high concentration of expansive clay minerals, such as smectite, which behave fundamentally differently depending on the season. The dry season fissures. As moisture evaporates, the smectite clay shrinks drastically. The ground pulls apart, creating deep, treacherous geometric fissures across the plains. These cracks aerate the soil, but act as hazardous traps for fast-running predators and the axles of safari vehicles. The wet season. Swell. When the rains return, the clay rapidly absorbs water and swells, effectively sealing the surface. Because the water can no longer drain downward, it sits on top, transforming the plains into a remarkably slick, adhesive mud. This specific mud limits the movement of heavy, wheeled vehicles and forces large herds to stick to higher, better drained ground to avoid exhaustion. Habitats and vegetation. The Masai Mara encompasses a mosaic of habitat types within a relatively compact area. Over 95 species of mammals are found here, and more than 550 species of birds, reflecting the variety of environments. Major habitat zones include savanna grassland, the dominant landscape. Vast open plains of grass are dotted with umbrella thorn acacia and patchy shrubs. Dry season grass is short and brown, but after rains the plains burst into a lush green carpet. Interspersed among grasses are seasonal pools and depressions that fill with water in wet months, providing grazing grounds even in drier times. Riverine forest. Along the Mara, Talek, and Sand rivers are narrow strips of woodland and swampy thickets. Trees such as fig, ficus, wild date, Phoenix reclinata, dome palm, hyphane, and diverse shrubs form dense canopy over undergrowth of papyrus, sedges, and reeds in some areas. The permanent Musiara swamp, also called papyrus marsh. In the central Mara is an important wetland of papyrus reeds, sedges, and water lilies. These riverine zones remain green year-round and attract many animals during the dry season. Acacia and woodland patches, away from permanent water, scattered savanna woodlands of acacia and commiphora trees occur. Common tree species include umbrella thorn acacia, Acacia tortilis, which stands out on the flat horizon, and red-green acacia, Acacia xanthoploia, near water. Shrubby bushland dominated by euphorbia and dombea can be found around rocky outcrops. Swamps and pans, seasonal and permanent swamps, dot parts of the Mara. Besides the Musiara swamp, other wetlands appear where groundwater and river overflows create marshes. These support aquatic plants and provide grazing for hippos and waterbuck. Dry pans with a clay bottom provide salt licks and dust baths for wildlife when water evaporates. Escarpment. Woodland. The woodlands atop and on the slopes of the Olulolo escarpment host different vegetation. Here one finds dry scrub and acacia bush more suited to higher elevation, as well as patches of indigenous forest on south-facing slopes. Across these habitats, plant diversity is very high. A survey of the Mara recorded over 1,000 plant species, including grasses, flowering herbs, and succulents. After each rainy season, the grasses and wildflowers explode with new growth, and ephemeral flowers bloom in brilliant colors. For example, red oatgrass, Themeda triandra, forms the backbone of the grassland, and bloomers like the tissue paper flower, Crossandra subacaulis, and pajama lily, Crinum makawani, add splashes of color. This floral variety provides food and habitat for herbivores, and the many species of insects and birds. Wildlife of the Mara. The Masai Mara is globally renowned for its abundant wildlife. It supports one of the highest concentrations of large mammals on Earth. Overall, the reserve hosts nearly 2.5 million large herbivores and an equally impressive assemblage of predators. This rich fauna is made possible by the productive grasslands and year-round water. Local names aside, Masai Mara is like a living museum of African savanna life. Mammals. Virtually every iconic African wild mammal can be found in the Mara. It is famous for the Great Migration, but even in the off-season there are permanent populations of many species. Common large herbivores include wildebeest, plain zebra, Thompson's gazelle, Grant's gazelle, impala, topi, Koch's hartebeest, waterbuck, and thousands of giraffes. Herds of African buffalo and elephant wander the plains and woodlands in significant numbers. Smaller antelopes like kirks, dik-dik, and bushbuck thrive in shrubland edges, and even eland antelope are present in modest herds. The Masai Mara is one of the few places where all of Africa's big five mammals occur: lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and black rhinoceros. Black rhinos are scarce but protected in the reserve. Predators are abundant. Lions are particularly numerous and are often seen in prides, on open hills, or in the swamp grass. Leopards use the trees and rocky outcrops as strongholds for ambushing prey. Cheetahs hunt in the open grassland, especially during daylight, chasing down gazelles with their incredible speed. Spotted hyenas form large clans and compete with lions for the reserve's plentiful prey. Other carnivores include jackals, servals, caracals, African wild dogs, now mostly extirpated within the park, and smaller felines like African wildcats. One of the Mara's unique features is its very high large herbivore density, nearly 240 large grazing animals per square kilometer, making it a predator's paradise. Birds. Over 500 species of birds have been recorded in the Mara, making it a prime bird-watching destination. Grassland specialists such as the Kori bustard, secretary bird, and ground hornbill are regularly seen on the plains. Vultures and eagles, more than 50 species of raptors have been noted, patrol the skies looking for carrion or live prey. Herons, storks, and krakes inhabit the marshes, including the shoebill. Though extremely rare, one was once recorded in the Mara. The synergies of wetland and woodland enable diverse communities. Pied kingfishers, blacksmith plovers, and jacanas frequent the water edges, while colorful birds like lilac-breasted rollers and bee-eaters brighten the skies. Many migratory birds arrive from Eurasia. For instance, white storks and sandpipers double the number of marsh birds in the wet seasons. Savanna habitat birds, such as francolins, guinea fowl, and doves, are also common. The Mara Triangle, northwestern corner, is recognized as an important bird area for species such as crowned cranes and vultures. Rarity highlights include the gray-crested helmet shrike and other regionally uncommon species that find refuge here. Other fauna. The Mara's rivers and wetlands support a number of non-mammalian animals. Hippopotamuses gather in deeper pools and the swamp margins year-round. Nile crocodiles lurk at river crossings, posing a threat during the migration. Reptiles like monitor lizards and snakes are present, but less often seen. Small mammals are also plentiful. Troops of olive baboons and colobus monkeys move through woodland, while nocturnal bush babies, galagos, mongoose, and tree-dwelling hyraxes hide in thick cover. Even invertebrates contribute enormously. Termites construct mounds, and arthropod swarms provide essential food for many species. These faunal assemblages make the Mara one of the richest wildlife areas in Africa, if not the world. Indeed, the Mara Serengeti ecosystem holds the largest population of plains, ungulates on the planet. It also supports viable populations of several globally endangered species like African wild dog. Outside the protected area, black rhinoceros and many large birds, highlighting its critical importance for conservation. The alarm network, interspecies eavesdropping. Out here on the Great Plains of the Masai Mara, there is a profound illusion of silence. When the wind dies down and the midday heat settles over the tall, golden grasses, the world seems entirely still. But survival in this ancient landscape is not just about who is the fastest or who possesses the sharpest eyesight. It is about who is the best listener. Beneath the sweeping winds and the rustle of the dry earth, a hidden, continuous conversation is happening. It is a highly complex, interspecies alarm network, a shared acoustic language forged by the absolute necessity of staying alive. Every creature here is a sentinel. When a predator begins to move through the brush, it triggers a ripple effect of sound that travels far faster than any lion or leopard can run. But the animals of the Mara do not merely listen for the heavy footfall of a lioness or the rustle of a stalker in the undergrowth. They actively eavesdrop on the panic of entirely different species. An impala, grazing quietly with its head down in the scrub, is never truly isolated. It is simultaneously tuning into the sharp, barking snorts of a baboon troop in the distant acacia trees, the sudden, frantic chattering of a francolin taking flight, or the sharp whistle of a distant reed buck. They are tapping into a collective radar, utilizing the eyes of those high in the canopy and those scattered across the horizon. This is not a simple, blind panic response. It is a highly calculated, split-second assessment of risk. The herbivores of the Mara have learned to decipher exactly which alarms matter to them, translating foreign tongues into a singular, urgent message. They filter out the false alarms and the irrelevant noise of the savanna. If a small mammal sounds a localized alert for a bird of prey, a grazing zebra or a massive water buck might barely flick an ear. The threat simply does not apply to them. But if a species that shares the exact same vulnerabilities, a creature hunted by the very same predators, sounds the alert, the reaction is immediate and electric. They literally weigh the reliability of the informant. They understand the urgency in the pitch, the cadence, and the repetition of the call. A casual warning snort from a gazelle might just mean a hyena is visible but sleeping in the distance. But a rapid escalating sequence of shrieks from a vervet monkey means the stalk has turned into an active ambush. A solitary antelope can gauge the exact distance, direction, and speed of an incoming threat purely by tracking how the wave of alarm calls moves from one species to the next across the savanna. This shared network forces the Mara's predators into an incredibly difficult evolutionary arms race. A leopard hunting in the thicket isn't just trying to hide from the eyes of its chosen prey. It is trying to slip past the collective hearing of the entire woodland. One snapped twig noticed by a completely unrelated bird can ruin hours of patient, exhausting stalking. In this timeless landscape, where the rules of survival were written long before we arrived, a warning spoken by one becomes the salvation of many. It is an invisible, acoustic web that binds the entire ecosystem together, proving that in the wild, no one truly survives alone. The Great Migration, nature's spectacle. Each year, Masai Mara becomes the stage for one of the most famous natural events on Earth, the wildebeest migration. Around July, as rains end in Tanzania's Serengeti, over 1.5 million blue wildebeest surge northward into Kenya. Accompanying them are hundreds of thousands of zebras and gazelles, moving in search of fresh grasses on the nutrient-rich Mara plains. The migration's timing depends on rainfall and grass growth. Typically, the herds arrive in the Mara from July through September, then head back south by November. The journey includes dramatic river crossings. The Mara River's steep banks and deep waters create natural choke points. Wildebeest and other animals gather on the banks, then plunge into the currents together. Many animals are swept downstream or are taken by crocodiles lying in ambush. Lions and hyenas often stalk the crossings, attacking weakened or delayed animals. These crossings make headlines each year, but they are just part of a larger pattern. The migration is essentially a circular movement driven by the rains. Scientists describe it as a continuous cycle. After the fresh rains and grass shoot up in the Serengeti, the herds move north. When the rains return to the Mara, the animals feed and breed, then start back as southern plains green up again. More than 300,000 wildebeest calves in the Mara ecosystem between February and March, taking advantage of short rains that trigger grazing, though many calves are born slightly outside the reserve. Predators follow this abundance. The Mara often holds the largest concentration of carnivores in Kenya. The migration and resident animals together ensure a dynamic and vibrant cycle of life. Visitors coming for the Mara during migration season witness a world-famous wildlife show, often referred to as the Great Migration, or one of the natural wonders of Africa. Conservation and challenges. While the Masai Mara is a protected reserve, it faces modern pressures. Rapid human population growth around the park has led to expanding agriculture and settlements. Large farms have encroached near the northern boundary, and fences in some communal lands interrupt traditional wildlife corridors. During drought or crop failures, livestock may graze inside the reserve, leading to conflict with wildlife. Illegal grazing, along with poaching for bushmeat and ivory, have been issues at times. Uncontrolled fires can sweep through the grasslands, and off-road driving by tourists can disturb animals. Tourism, however, is also a source of support. Masai Mara's gate fees and related industries bring income to local communities and conservation agencies. Conservation organizations collaborate with the Maasai people to benefit from wildlife. Many parts of the Mara ecosystem beyond the official reserve are now managed as community conservancies, where local landowners receive payments for wildlife protection. The Mara Conservancy, a management body, oversees much of the protected area's daily operations, anti-poaching efforts, and resource use. Strict park regulations limit where vehicles can go and where lodges can be built to minimize habitat damage. As a result of these efforts, many wildlife populations in the Mara have remained stable or recovered. For example, anti-poaching patrols and secure habitats have helped the black rhinoceros numbers gradually increase. Cheetah and lion populations remain robust because of the abundant prey base. Efforts are also underway to reduce human-wildlife conflict. Some farmers use fortified beehive fences or livestock guarding dogs to protect crops and cattle from elephants and carnivores. Conservationists emphasize that long-term protection of the Mara requires balancing ecological needs with community welfare. Integrating traditional Maasai practices of pastoralism with wildlife conservation has been part of this strategy, reflecting the historical coexistence in the region. Overall, Masai Mara is often cited as a success story of community-based conservation on the African savanna. It remains largely unfenced, which allows migrations to continue and wide-ranging animals to survive. Shifting rhythms, the modern threat of climate change. While the physical geography and predators of the Masai Mara have shaped its wildlife for millennia, an invisible, highly unpredictable modern threat is rapidly rewriting the fundamental rules of survival. The ecosystem is facing unprecedented stress from a shifting climate, transforming the once reliable rhythms of the savanna into a volatile battle against extremes. Broken migration clocks. The Great Migration has historically operated as a synchronized clock, deeply tied to the predictable arrival of the long and short rains. Today, the region is experiencing significant warming, with monthly minimum temperatures rising by over 3 degrees Celsius in some seasons. This heat accelerates evaporation, rapidly drying out the landscape and shrinking the critical green window of nutrient-rich grass. Unpredictable weather phenomena, amplified by severe El Niño and La Niña events, cause rains to arrive late, early, or fail entirely. This erratic rainfall disorients the massive herds, leading to splintered migrations. Consequently, the amount of time the wildebeest spend grazing in the Mara has drastically decreased. A residency that once lasted up to 4 months has occasionally plummeted to just 6 weeks. The pendulum of drought and deluge. The Mara is increasingly trapped in a violent pendulum swing between severe drought and devastating floods. Extended dry spells severely deplete the Mara River and seasonal swamps, triggering widespread dehydration and forcing animals to migrate longer distances into riskier, unprotected territories. When the rains finally break, they frequently arrive as concentrated, intense downpours rather than slow, soaking showers. These sudden flash floods alter the steep banks of the river crossings, wash away vital topsoil, and cause sudden temperature drops that can prove instantly fatal to wildlife already weakened by prolonged starvation. The shrinking buffer and rising conflict. The ecological strain does not stop at the reserve's borders. It profoundly impacts the surrounding Maasai communities, whose pastoral livelihoods are tethered to the same land. As droughts scorch communal grazing lands, pastoralists are increasingly forced to drive their cattle closer to the reserve's boundaries, and sometimes inside, to find surviving grass. Simultaneously, desperate wildlife wanders into agricultural and settlement areas, seeking water and forage. This forced overlap intensifies the competition for rapidly shrinking resources, increasing the spread of disease between domestic and wild animals, and escalating human-wildlife conflicts that threaten the fragile historic coexistence of the region. The Masai Mara remains one of the richest ecosystems on Earth. Its sweeping landscapes of grasslands, acacia woodlands, and rivers cradle an astonishing diversity of life. Every corner of the reserve hosts scenes from a classic African wilderness. Lions resting under acacia trees, herds of antelope feeding in open grass, flocks of storks rising from wetland marshes. The annual Great Migration symbolizes the Mara's raw, natural drama. Yet throughout the year, even without the migratory crowds, the reserve supports a full circle of life with predators, prey, and plants, all interlinked. This vast natural stage has been shaped by millennia of climate and geology, and by the people who have lived alongside it. Today it is both a haven for wildlife and a mirror for human endeavor, as Maasai herders and modern conservationists work to sustain the land's richness. By understanding and preserving places like the Masai Mara, we safeguard not only Kenya's heritage, but one of the most beautiful and balanced ecosystems on the planet. New generations of visitors and scientists continue to learn from its open skies and golden plains. In the Masai Mara, the rhythms of nature continue with remarkable clarity. From the whisper of the wind across grasslands to the thunder of hooves in the migration. This is the story of a wild land that speaks to the soul and invites us to listen to the timeless song of the African savanna. Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park stands as a vast wilderness sanctuary in the Rocky Mountains of the western United States, first set aside in 1872 as the world's first national park. It sprawls across more than 2 million acres, covering parts of Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. This storied landscape was preserved to protect its incredible array of natural wonders. Steaming geysers, colorful hot springs, towering peaks, lush forests, and an abundance of wildlife. It is a place of superlatives, the largest concentration of geysers on Earth, the site of a massive volcanic caldera, and home to some of the continent's most iconic animals. Geologic origins. Yellowstone's dramatic topography reflects a fiery volcanic history. Beneath the park lies a volcanic hotspot, a plume of superheated magma rising from deep in the earth. 3 catastrophic eruptions occurred here about 2.1 million years ago, 1.3 million years ago, and 631,000 years ago. These massive blasts ejected thousands of cubic kilometers of ash and lava, forging a roughly 30 by 45-mile caldera that defines the park today. Vast flows of rhyolite lava and layers of volcanic ash covered the landscape. Over time, the emptied magma chamber collapsed under its own weight, creating sunken basins now occupied by lakes and canyons. Even today, the Yellowstone magma chamber remains shallow, fueling hundreds of earthquakes each year and feeding the park's famous thermal features. The ground here continues to rise and fall by inches each year as magma and hot fluids shift underground. Glaciers sculpted Yellowstone too. As recently as 13,000 to 16,000 years ago, ice sheets covered much of this region. When the glaciers retreated, they carved deep valleys, deposited rounded boulders, glacial erratics, on the plains, and left moraines and polished cliffs. Some high ridges, such as Terrace Mountain by Mammoth Hot Springs, are capped with glacial till, debris that dates back to the last ice age. This icy past explains the park's many alpine lakes and rugged mountain channels. Mountains rise across the park from these geologic forces. To the north and east, the Absaroka Range. Volcanic ridges tens of millions of years old, looms over Yellowstone's interior. Farther south, the Gallatin and Washburn ranges show evidence of faulting and lava flows. The park's high elevation, most of Yellowstone lies above 7,500 feet, brings cool temperatures and heavy snow. Steep peaks funnel meltwater into dozens of rivers, the Yellowstone River roaring out of Yellowstone Lake and plunging over the 308-foot lower falls is a testament to these sculpting forces. Over millennia, rushing water has cut the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River, a steep canyon of rhyolite rock streaked in yellow, red, and white, revealing layers of the park's fiery history. Geothermal wonders. Yellowstone preserves the most extraordinary collection of hydrothermal features on Earth. More than 10,000 hot springs, mud pots, steam vents, and geysers dot the landscape, testifying to the heat and magma below. Here, rainwater and snowmelt seep deep underground, are heated to near boiling by the Yellowstone hotspot, and then race back to the surface in fantastical displays. Among these, the most famous is Old Faithful Geyser, which reliably erupts every 60 to 110 minutes, shooting a 100-foot column of water and steam skyward. But Old Faithful is just one of hundreds of predictably erupting geysers clustered in the Upper Geyser Basin. In fact, this 1 square mile contains over 150 geysers, more than any other place on Earth. Other geysers, like Steamboat Geyser, the world's tallest active geyser, and Fountain Geyser, erupt sporadically, sending boiling water tens of feet into the air. Hot springs are everywhere too. Broad pools of turquoise water bubble and swirl in alpine settings. For example, at the Midway Basin, where Grand Prismatic Spring spans 370 feet across with vividly banded colors. Brilliant blue at the center, it fades through green and orange to rust at the edges as different heat-loving microbes thrive at different temperatures. These microbial mats create rainbows of color. Mud pots bubble nearby where steam mixes with clay, creating acid slurries that churn and hiss. Everywhere the air is thick with steam and the smell of sulfur, and the ground is honeycombed with sinter terraces and mounds of geyserite, deposited silica. Mammoth Hot Springs in the north is famous for its travertine terraces, dazzling white and orange stair-step formations where calcium-rich hot water has dissolved limestone on its way up, then left behind mountains of mineral deposits. These terraces are constantly changing. You can watch them grow or wink out over the seasons as water flows shift. Millions of heat-loving microorganisms call these scalding waters home. Tiny yellow and orange bacteria line the edges of springs, thriving where most life would perish. Though we cannot see them without a microscope, these thermophiles create the hot springs' vibrant colors and help scientists understand life in extreme environments. The geothermal basins teem with these unseen communities, which glow under special light. Steam vortices swirl in cold dawn air, and gulls and bison sometimes graze right up to the boiling pools. Wildlife even uses this warmth. In winter, the ground under some hydrothermal areas stays bare of snow, giving elk, bison, and other animals patches of exposed earth to stand on. Rangers often caution visitors that the thin crust around these features is dangerous. It can crack, dumping an unsuspecting person into boiling water. Hot springs and terraces. The park's hot springs range from serene pools to dramatic plunges of water. West Thumb Geyser Basin, on the shores of Yellowstone Lake, looks almost like a tropical lagoon from above. Deep holes of azure water mingle with bubbling mud pots, all set against pine forests. Excelsior Geyser Crater, now mostly silent, once blasted water 300 feet high and still quietly pours 4,000 gallons per minute into the Firehole River. Many springs are clustered in basins along the Firehole and other rivers, creating surreal wet worlds. Travelers often feel transported to another planet when walking among them. The stepped terraces at Mammoth Hot Springs are among Yellowstone's most unusual sights. Instead of the colorful rainbow pools of other basins, here calcium carbonate-laden waters have built towering staircases and pinnacles. Some terraces are tinted orange or green by microbes, others are bleached white. Because the water here flows through old limestone rather than rhyolite, it carries dissolved carbonates to the surface. As the water cools, the carbonates precipitate out in intricate patterns. These formations shift slowly. A spire might form overnight, then vanish when the water's chemistry changes. The dynamics of these springs mean that from year to year, entire terraces can migrate, grow, or even dry up. All these springs remain active reminders of Yellowstone's volcanic heart. We may assume geysers like Old Faithful are eternal, but each basin is a living system slowly changing. New features erupt, old ones fall silent, and conduits open and close beneath the surface. Geologists and park staff constantly monitor these thermal areas, but to visitors, they retain the air of mystery and wonder that inspired Yellowstone's creation as a park. Lakes and rivers. Water shapes Yellowstone as much as fire. About 5% of the park's land is covered by water, with countless lakes, streams, and wetlands crisscrossing its valleys. The largest lake is Yellowstone Lake, a high-altitude basin 7,733 feet above sea level. Averaging well below human body temperatures year-round, this 20-mile-long lake rarely surrenders itself to the sun. It often freezes solid in winter and does not fully thaw until early summer. Even in summer, the chilly water, around 41 degrees Fahrenheit on average, discourages swimming. Yellowstone Lake holds the largest population of naturally occurring cutthroat trout on Earth. A recent submersible expedition revealed that the lake has its own canyons, hot springs, and even geyser chimneys on its bottom, echoing the park's surface features. 2 small islands dot its waters. The lake's outlet is the Yellowstone River. The Yellowstone River flows north out of Yellowstone Lake. It cuts the classic Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, a dramatic gorge up to 1,200 feet deep, with sheer rhyolite walls stained red and gold by iron oxides. The canyon's most famous view is of the 308-foot Lower Falls, higher than Niagara, thundering over a narrow cliff. Above it, the 109-foot Upper Falls crashes into a deep pool. Miles of walking trails and overlooks allow visitors to admire these cascades from different angles and feel the mist on their faces. Cascades and falls also appear on other streams, including Cresselius Falls, Lewis Falls, Kepler Cascades, and Mystic Falls, hidden in lush meadows. More than 290 named waterfalls are scattered across the park's terrain, reflecting the landscape's complex relief. Many streams and rivers converge here. The Firehole River and the Gibbon River meet near Madison Junction, forming the Madison River. The Lamar River in the northeast winds through open grasslands. The Gardner River flows near Mammoth. These waterways host cold water, cutthroat trout, and nourish vibrant riparian plants each spring. Moose wade in quiet channels, and bears search along riverbanks during spawning runs. The headwaters of the Snake River begin near Yellowstone's southern boundary, linking the park to broader western watersheds. Over millennia, these rivers have carved valleys through volcanic bedrock, creating fertile corridors of willow and cottonwood that attract diverse wildlife. Canyon and waterfalls. One of Yellowstone's most iconic landscapes is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Here, the Yellowstone River has carved a striking canyon with walls of rhyolite rock ranging in hue from pastel yellow to pink and deep red, colored by mineral oxidation and hydrothermal alteration. Lookouts, such as Artist Point and Inspiration Point, offer sweeping vistas of the canyon and its waterfalls. The canyon stands as a vivid meeting point of fire and water. Volcanic forces formed the rock, and flowing water shaped it into its present form. Lower Falls dominates the panorama. More than 200 feet of water plunge into a frothy chasm. The roar can be heard from far along the rim. On cloudy days, rainbows arc through the drifting mist. Elsewhere, Mystic Falls tumbles about 70 feet near Biscuit Basin in a quiet, forested setting. Away from main roads, hikers may encounter smaller waterfalls such as Wraith Falls. Each cascade differs in character. Some descend in steep stair steps of white water. Others fall in a thin, shimmering veil over dark stone. Seasonal flow variations are dramatic. Summer thunderstorms can swell streams suddenly. Winter ice forms thick curtains along the cliffs. Spring snowmelt fills each spillway to its edge. The canyon region also reveals Yellowstone's rugged terrain. This area once experienced intense underground heat, and the cooling volcanic rock fractured into crumbly cliffs. Steam vents rise from cracks in the canyon walls, and remnants of ancient hydrothermal deposits cling to some ledges. In early spring, sheltered pockets hold lingering snow beside new grasses. Archaeological evidence along the lakeshore below the canyon shows that indigenous peoples lived and traveled here thousands of years ago, fishing and hunting long before the park was established. Today, the canyon remains one of Yellowstone's most visited destinations. Millions pause each year to witness its scale, color, and movement, forests and flora. Yellowstone's forests cloak much of the park. Roughly 80% of its landscape is covered in conifers. Lowlands and river valleys often feature lodgepole pine woodlands. These tall, straight pines dominate the canopy across millions of acres. On exposed ridges and high slopes, Engelmann spruce, subalpine fir, whitebark pine and limber pine form dense stands or scattered krumholz near tree line. In the northern part of the park, Douglas fir grows in warmer microclimates along rivers such as the Gardner. Its thick bark allows it to withstand low-intensity fires, and some groves still bear scars from burns that occurred more than a century ago. Mountain slopes also hold aspen groves, particularly where past fires have opened clearings. In these open areas and nearby meadows, summer brings carpets of wildflowers, blue lupine, Indian paintbrush, and bright yellow glacier lilies add vivid color to the undergrowth. The forest understory includes shrubs of willow, choke cherry, and serviceberry, especially along streams. Sagebrush grasslands occupy the lowest valleys and glacial basins. In spring, these broad expanses turn green with fresh grasses, providing important forage for elk and bison. By late summer and autumn, golden grasses and russet shrubs spread beneath wide skies. More than 1,300 native plant species grow within Yellowstone. They range from delicate alpine forget-me-nots in high tundra to tall wetland vegetation in marshy meadows. Vegetation zones shift with elevation. Near Mammoth Hot Springs, willow and poplar thickets line the banks of the Gardner River. Farther south, and higher in elevation, lodgepole forests transition toward alpine meadows near summits. These plant communities form the foundation of Yellowstone's food web. They nourish herbivores and provide shelter for small mammals and birds. Fire is a natural part of this ecosystem. Every few decades, lightning ignites forest fires that clear old growth and help lodgepole pine germinate. Their cones open in heat. Many meadows in Yellowstone owe their existence to such burns. Park rangers now let fires burn under supervision in natural cycles. Recognizing T had a mosaic of burned and unburned areas increases biodiversity. The result is a patchwork: young green stands, old scorched skeletons, and mixed-age forests. In autumn, the foliage changes too. Cottonwoods along rivers turn gold, and willows flush red, framing the evergreen backdrop. Snow blankets much of the park by winter, yet some trees keep color. The juniper and mountain mahogany in valleys, or the autumn berries of hawthorn under snow. Wildlife. Yellowstone is celebrated for its rich wildlife, second in fame only to its geysers. Large herds of elk and bison roam the open valleys. In summer, meadows echo with the bugling calls of thousands of elk. Bison move slowly across the high plains, their massive shoulders rolling as they wander through grasses and drifting clouds of insects. The Yellowstone bison herd is the largest wild, free-roaming herd in the United States. Several thousand animals spread across the park's valleys, and each spring many calves are born among the herds. Pronghorn graze across the sagebrush flats. Yellowstone is one of the few places where these remarkably fast animals still move across wide landscapes in long seasonal migrations. In forest clearings and along quiet rivers, mule deer often appear among the grasses and shrubs. Occasionally, a moose may be seen feeding among willows in wet meadows or slow-moving streams. Above the valleys, in rugged limestone outcrops and steep slopes, bighorn sheep stand balanced on narrow ledges, moving across cliffs with remarkable agility. Predators and bird life. Predators include the majestic grizzly bear and its smaller relative, the American black bear. Both feed on a wide range of foods, from berries and insects to fish and carrion. Yellowstone's bears are accustomed to the presence of people, yet they remain extremely powerful animals. Visitors are warned to keep a safe distance and to observe bears only from vehicles or under the supervision of experienced guides. Coyotes and gray wolves patrol the valleys and forests. The gray wolf was reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995 after an absence of roughly 70 years. Today, several packs roam across the park. They hunt elk and other prey, influencing the balance of the ecosystem. Researchers have noted that willow and aspen along many streams have begun recovering as wolf predation reduces heavy elk browsing. Cougars also inhabit the park, although they are rarely seen. Smaller carnivores share the landscape as well. Foxes, lynx, wolverines, river otters, martens and badgers each occupy their own ecological role within Yellowstone's complex web of life. Bird life is equally abundant. Nearly 300 species have been recorded in the park. Eagles and hawks circle above open valleys. Ospreys plunge into rivers in search of fish. Along lake shores, sandhill cranes and pelicans move across wetlands and shallow water. Within the forests, the air fills with the songs of warblers, thrushes, and sparrows, while woodpeckers drum on hollow trunks. Yellowstone's waterways are rich with fish. 5 native species inhabit its rivers and lakes, including the Yellowstone cutthroat trout and several types of native minnows. Cutthroat trout migrate into small streams during spring snowmelt to spawn. During this period, bald eagles and ospreys gather in large numbers to feed on them, especially near Fishing Bridge. In recent decades, however, the introduction of lake trout has placed pressure on the cutthroat population in Yellowstone Lake. Conservation teams work actively to reduce lake trout numbers and protect native fish during spawning seasons. Across Yellowstone, every habitat supports life. From high ridges to wet meadows, animals move through a landscape shaped by water, fire, and seasons. At dawn, elk and bison graze across open grasslands. By midday, coyotes may trot along distant hills. At night, owls call from pine branches while wolves howl across the valleys. Lamar Valley and Hayden Valley have become well-known locations for observing wildlife across broad open plains. During winter, conditions grow harsh. Bison and elk migrate toward lower elevations and dig through snow to reach buried grasses. Predators follow these herds, seeking weakened prey. Grizzly bears spend the cold months in dens among rocky slopes. Smaller mammals, such as foxes and hares, develop pale winter coats that blend with the snow. Wolves continue to hunt across frozen landscapes. When spring finally arrives, newborn fawns and elk calves appear, and Yellowstone once again fills with movement and birdsong. Secrets and wonders of the Amazon. The vast Amazon basin. The Amazon has captured human imagination as a place of staggering beauty and grave danger. It is Earth's largest tropical rainforest and river system, spanning more than 6.1 million square kilometers, about 2.4 million square miles, roughly 40% of South America. This vast basin extends from the Andes in Peru and Ecuador to the Atlantic coast of Brazil, crossing parts of 9 countries in all. The scale is immense. Roughly 1/5 of the world's flowing fresh water is contained here, and about 60% of the planet's remaining tropical rainforest lies in the Amazon basin. Scientists estimate that approximately 1 in every 10 known species on Earth can be found in this region, making it one of the richest biodiversity hotspots on the planet. Climate and river systems. The Amazon basin has a hot equatorial climate with high humidity and heavy rainfall. The region generally receives 1,500 to 3,000 millimeters of rain per year. Thousands of rivers and streams crisscross the basin, draining toward the Atlantic. The Amazon River itself begins high in the Peruvian Andes, above 5,500 meters elevation, and flows more than 6,400 kilometers to the Atlantic. Because the land is very flat, the river drops only about 1.5 centimeters per kilometer on average, so it moves slowly across the floodplain. Despite its gentle slope, the Amazon has the greatest freshwater discharge of any river, around 219,000 cubic meters per second on average, sending roughly 1/6 of the world's river water into the ocean. In the dry season, the main channel may be only 4 to 5 kilometers wide, but in the peak flood season, it can expand to more than 50 kilometers across, flooding the forest for miles. Each year, this flood pulse turns millions of hectares of forest into lakes and wetlands, called Várzea and Igapo, profoundly reshaping the landscape. Terrain and landscapes. The Amazon basin contains a surprising variety of terrain. Elevations range from sea level along the Atlantic coast to over 6,000 meters in the Andes, but most of the basin is flat lowland. About 30% of the basin is seasonally or permanently flooded, including mangrove swamps and so-called whitewater, Várzea, and blackwater, Igapo, flooded forests, while the rest is upland, terra firme rainforest that rarely floods. Scattered white sand savannas, palm wetlands and bamboo thickets occur in some regions. Annual rainfall varies widely. Parts of the Amazon get more than 7 meters of rain per year, while drier areas might see only 1 or 2 meters. Overall, the Amazon is a mosaic of dense forests, wetlands, and open areas. Flora of the Amazon. The Amazon's plant life is not just lush. It is structured, strategic, and constantly negotiating for light, water, and space. To understand the forest, it helps to see it as an architecture built by plants, layer by layer, from the dark soil to the sunlit crowns. The forest as layers. And why light rules everything. Most sunlight is captured high above the ground. A large share of the forest floor lives in permanent shade. So many plants have evolved growth styles that treat light like a rare currency. At the top are emergent trees, the tallest individuals that rise above the main canopy and absorb the strongest sun and wind. Below them is the canopy itself, a continuous roof of crowns where most photosynthesis happens and where a major share of the forest's flowers, fruits, and animal interactions take place. Then comes the understory, a world of filtered green light, slower growth, and leaves shaped to catch every available photon. On the floor, seedlings and shade-tolerant herbs wait for opportunity. When a large tree falls, it creates a sudden gap, and that gap becomes a temporary arena where fast-growing pioneer plants race upward. This cycle of gaps and regrowth is one reason the Amazon holds so many different plant strategies at once. The hidden foundation. Soils that look poor, yet support a giant forest. A common surprise is that much of the Amazon's soil is not especially rich in nutrients. In many areas, nutrients are stored more in the living biomass and leaf litter than in the ground itself. That means plants depend heavily on rapid recycling. Leaves fall, microbes and fungi break them down. Roots capture nutrients quickly before heavy rains wash them deeper or away. This is why the forest can be incredibly productive, even where the soil is not naturally fertile. Roots often spread wide and shallow, forming dense networks near the surface where nutrients appear first. In some places, you also find black earth patches, dark, fertile soils, enriched over long periods by past human activity, that can support especially robust plant growth compared with surrounding ground. Trees that build the forest, and the engineering of buttress roots. Many Amazon trees grow to enormous sizes, but height is only part of their design. Some develop massive buttress roots, great plank-like supports that flare out from the trunk. These roots stabilize tall trees in wet ground and shallow soils, and they can also increase the surface area for nutrient and water uptake. Walk through a mature forest, and you are walking among living pillars with foundations shaped like walls. These structures are not rare exceptions. They are a defining feature of many parts of the basin. The vine world. Lianas as competitors, connectors, and opportunists. The Amazon is not only trees. Lianas, woody vines that climb into the canopy, are key players. Instead of investing energy in building thick trunks, many lianas invest in length and flexibility, using trees as scaffolding to reach sunlight. They can link crowns together, create aerial pathways for animals, and at times heavily burden trees by competing for light and water. In some forests, a dense tangle of lianas can slow tree regeneration after disturbance, changing how a patch of forest recovers after a big gap opens. Epiphytes. Plants that live on plants. Look up, and you'll notice many plants aren't rooted in the soil at all. Epiphytes, such as orchids and bromeliads, grow on branches and trunks. They are not parasites, they use trees mainly as a perch. Because they live above the ground, they have to manage water carefully. Some bromeliads form leaf rosettes that trap rainwater, creating tiny ponds that can host insects, small frogs, and microorganisms. In this way, a single canopy branch can hold multiple miniature ecosystems, stacked on top of the forest itself. Flooded forests and upland forests. Different flora for different water worlds. Not all Amazon forests experience the same water patterns. In upland, terra firma forests, trees and understory plants are built for steady ground conditions, and they may never be submerged. But vast areas are seasonally flooded, and those forests are shaped by months of waterlogging. In whitewater floodplains, the river brings sediment and nutrients, and plants often grow quickly in fertile deposits. In blackwater flooded forests, the water can be more acidic and nutrient-poor, and plant communities differ accordingly. The annual flood pulse changes everything. Seed dispersal routes shift. Some plants time fruiting with the flood to use fish as dispersers. and roots must tolerate long periods with less oxygen. So when you say Amazon flora, you are really describing many overlapping floras, each tied to a specific rhythm of water and soil, flowers and fruit, and the forest's contracts with animals. Much of the Amazon's plant reproduction depends on animals. Some trees rely on specific pollinators, including bees, beetles, butterflies, bats, and hummingbirds. Many fruits are designed to be eaten, because being eaten is how the seed travels. Monkeys, toucans, macaws, tapirs, and fish all contribute to dispersal in different habitats. You can think of the forest as a web of agreements. A plant offers nectar or fruit, an animal provides pollination or transport. These relationships can be highly selective, so the loss of one animal species can quietly affect the reproduction of certain plants, even when the trees still appear healthy for years. Iconic and economically important plants. Some Amazon plants are famous worldwide, but their real significance is how they fit into forest life. The Brazil nut tree is a towering species that can live for centuries, producing heavy fruit pods with large seeds. Its reproduction is linked to forest integrity, because it depends on pollinators and the wider ecosystem around it. The rubber tree, once at the center of a global economic rush, produces latex as part of its natural biology, but large-scale extraction histories also reshaped human settlement patterns in parts of the basin. Cacao, the source of chocolate, often grows in shaded conditions and produces pods directly from its trunk, a growth style that can make fruit accessible to certain pollinators and dispersers. And palms, in many areas, are foundational. Some palm species dominate certain landscapes, provide key foods for wildlife, and supply humans with materials for shelter and daily life. Defense without drama, chemistry, texture, and timing. Plants in the Amazon are under constant pressure from insects, fungi, and hungry mammals. So many species invest in defense, tough leaves, thorns, and a wide range of chemical compounds that deter feeding or infection. Some plants time their leaf production or flowering to reduce losses, or produce large fruit crops irregularly, so predators cannot rely on a steady supply. These defenses are not a sign of hostility. They are a form of survival in a place where consumption is constant. The understory, where patience is a strategy. The forest's lower layers hold plants that specialize in low light. Many understory shrubs and small trees grow slowly, waiting for a canopy opening. Their leaves can be broad and thin, maximizing light capture, and their life cycles may be built around rare moments of sun. Ferns, aroids, and shade herbs occupy niches close to the ground, while seedlings of giant canopy trees can persist for years, barely growing, but staying alive until conditions change. This quiet persistence is one of the Amazon's most overlooked plant strategies. Indigenous knowledge and forest management. A human layer in the botanical story. Indigenous communities have long developed deep botanical knowledge, distinguishing useful species for food, medicine, fibers, dyes, and construction. They also shape plant communities through selective harvesting and cultivation practices, encouraging certain useful species near settlements and travel corridors. This is one reason parts of the Amazon contain plant distributions that reflect human history, not only climate and soil. The forest in many places is both wild and culturally influenced, and understanding its flora includes understanding that long relationship. So when we speak of Amazon flora, we are not talking about a lot of plants. We are describing an organized living system, built from layers of light, shifting water, rapid nutrient recycling, and countless relationships with animals and people. And as we move from plants to wildlife, we will see that many of the Amazon's most dangerous and most beautiful stories begin here, in the green architecture that makes everything else possible. Wildlife of the Amazon: beauty, power, and risk in a living system. The wildlife of the Amazon cannot be understood as a collection of isolated species. It is a layered, interconnected system where every river bend, canopy branch, and patch of forest floor hosts its own community. Here, abundance does not mean safety, and beauty often exists beside real danger. Scientists estimate that roughly 10% of the world's known species live within the Amazon basin. This includes thousands of mammals, birds, reptiles and amphibians, fish, and an even greater number of insects and invertebrates. What defines the Amazon's wildlife is not just diversity, but specialization by space. Different heights of the forest, different water types, and different soil conditions create separate worlds that overlap, but do not function identically. Life in the canopy: aerial pathways and hidden predators. High above the ground, the canopy forms a continuous green platform stretching for kilometers. Many mammals rarely descend to the forest floor. Spider monkeys, howler monkeys, capuchins, tamarins, and marmosets move through branches using prehensile tails, strong limbs, and remarkable spatial awareness. Their diets vary, with some focusing on fruit, others on leaves or insects, and some combining all three. Sloths inhabit the same vertical world, moving slowly among branches, feeding primarily on leaves, and relying on stillness as their main form of protection. Their reduced movement conserves energy, but it also makes them vulnerable to aerial predators. Among those predators is the harpy eagle, one of the most powerful birds of prey on Earth. With a wingspan exceeding 2 meters and talons comparable in size to a bear's claws, it is capable of lifting monkeys and sloths from the canopy. Its presence demonstrates that even the highest branches are not beyond reach of danger. Colorful macaws and toucans dominate the visual landscape of the canopy. Their powerful beaks allow them to crack hard seeds and fruits. While visually striking, they also play a functional role as seed dispersers, carrying the forest's future across wide distances. On the ground, light is limited, visibility is low, and survival depends heavily on stealth. The jaguar is the undisputed apex predator of this level. Unlike many large cats that rely primarily on speed, the jaguar combines strength with ambush tactics. Its bite force is among the strongest of any big cat. Capable of piercing turtle shells and caiman skulls, it does not chase for long distances. It waits, calculates, and strikes with precision. Tapirs move through this same terrain, large herbivores that feed on fruits and vegetation. They are powerful animals, capable of defending themselves if cornered. Yet they remain frequent prey for jaguars in areas where both species overlap. Peccaries travel in groups, using collective awareness and aggression as defense. When threatened, they can stand their ground, forming tight defensive clusters and snapping their teeth loudly as warning. The forest floor is also home to leafcutter ants, armies of insects that harvest vegetation and carry it underground. Though small individually, their colonies can number in the millions, reshaping vegetation patterns over time. Rivers, a separate arena of power. The Amazon River system contains more freshwater fish species than any other river basin on Earth. Predation in these waters is constant. Piranhas are often sensationalized, yet they are typically opportunistic feeders rather than constant attackers. However, in certain conditions, such as drought or limited food supply, they can become more aggressive. The black caiman is one of the dominant aquatic predators. Reaching lengths of 5 to 6 meters, it patrols rivers and flooded forests, preying on fish, birds, and mammals that venture too close to the water's edge. The green anaconda inhabits slow-moving rivers, marshes, and flooded grasslands. It is the heaviest snake species in the world. Rather than using venom, It relies on muscular constriction. It ambushes prey from the water, coiling rapidly and cutting off circulation before swallowing animals whole. Electric eels add another dimension of risk. They are capable of generating high-voltage discharges that can stun prey or deter threats. For humans and animals alike, contact can result in temporary paralysis in water, which in itself can be life-threatening. The Amazon River dolphin, often pink in adulthood, navigates flooded forests during high water seasons. It uses echolocation to detect prey in murky conditions. Although not dangerous to humans in most documented interactions, it competes in a complex food web where it must avoid larger predators and shifting water conditions. Amphibians. Small bodies, potent chemistry. The Amazon is home to thousands of amphibian species. Many frogs display bright coloration that signals toxicity. Poison dart frogs produce alkaloid compounds in their skin that can be lethal to predators. Indigenous communities have historically used some of these toxins on hunting darts. The frogs themselves are small, often only a few centimeters long, yet their chemical defenses place them among the most biologically potent animals in the forest. Other amphibians rely on camouflage rather than toxins. Some blend seamlessly into leaf litter, making detection nearly impossible without careful observation. Insects. The dominant majority. In terms of numbers, insects dominate Amazonian wildlife. Beetles, butterflies, mosquitoes, ants, wasps, and countless other groups occupy nearly every niche. The bullet ant is known for one of the most painful insect stings recorded. While not typically fatal, the sting produces intense, long-lasting pain. For small animals, such defensive capabilities can deter predators effectively. Mosquitoes are less dramatic but more persistent. They serve as vectors for diseases such as malaria and dengue fever in certain regions. In this sense, danger in the Amazon is not always large and visible. It can be microscopic, transmitted through a single bite. Camouflage, silence, and misjudgment. One defining feature of Amazon wildlife is concealment. Many species rely on coloration that mirrors bark, leaves, or shadow. Snakes may remain motionless for hours, blending into branches or ground cover. Some species are venomous, others are not. Yet visual similarity can make identification difficult. The bushmaster, one of the longest venomous snakes in the Americas, inhabits forested regions and is primarily nocturnal. Its venom can be medically serious if untreated. Encounters are rare, but potentially dangerous. Large mammals are often heard before they are seen. The deep roar of a jaguar or the distant call of howler monkeys can travel kilometers through dense vegetation. Sound is a primary tool of communication in a landscape where sight is limited. Balance without sentiment. Predation in the Amazon is not constant violence, but it is constant pressure. Predators regulate herbivore populations. Herbivores influence vegetation patterns. Scavengers recycle remains. Insects break down organic matter. Every role contributes to system stability. However, from a human perspective, the risks are real. Venomous bites, territorial wildlife, powerful river currents, and disease-carrying insects require caution and preparation. The Amazon does not target humans, yet it does not adjust its processes to accommodate them either. Beauty and danger coexisting without contradiction. The same river that reflects a vivid sunset may conceal a caiman beneath its surface. The same tree that shelters vibrant macaws may host venomous ants along its trunk. The same quiet trail may cross the hunting range of a jaguar. In the Amazon, beauty does not eliminate danger. It exists alongside it. Understanding this duality is essential to understanding the region itself. The wildlife of the Amazon is not chaotic. It is structured, hierarchical, and responsive to water cycles, light patterns, and food availability. But within that structure lies unpredictability. And that unpredictability, combined with staggering biological richness, is what makes the Amazon not only one of the most beautiful places on Earth, but also one of the most formidable natural wonders. Throughout the Amazon, extraordinary natural phenomena abound. The meeting of the waters is a classic example. Near Manaus, the ochre-colored Solimões River converges with the dark Rio Negro, and for several kilometers, their waters flow side by side without mixing, creating a vivid line on the river's surface. This stands out even in satellite images. Another wonder is the giant Amazon water lily. Its round leaves can exceed 3 meters in diameter, large enough to float a small child. In the soil, mysterious patches of rich terra preta recall ancient peoples. These black earth soils, made by adding charcoal and organic matter, remain fertile for centuries, in contrast to the usual poor rainforest soils. Between these sites, and many more, from glowing fungi to spectacular sunsets through the canopy, the Amazon offers endless marvels. Tribes of the Amazon. The human story of the Amazon is as deep and complex as its rivers. Long before modern borders divided the basin into separate nations, thousands of indigenous communities developed societies shaped by forest, river, and seasonal flood. Today, the Amazon is home to hundreds of distinct indigenous groups, speaking hundreds of languages, each with its own worldview, social structure, and relationship to land. Some communities live in towns connected to national infrastructure, while others remain in remote territories with limited outside contact. A small number continue to live in voluntary isolation, choosing to avoid sustained interaction with the outside world. The forest is not merely a setting for these societies. It is their pharmacy, their marketplace, their spiritual landscape, and their historical archive. Knowledge of plants, soils, and river cycles is highly detailed and often passed down orally across generations. Certain communities distinguish dozens of soil types and understand how each responds to flooding, cultivation, or regeneration. They know which tree bark can treat fever, which vines contain drinkable water, which fruits ripen during high water seasons, and which areas of forest should remain undisturbed. Housing styles vary depending on region and cultural tradition. In some areas, large communal houses shelter extended families under a single roof. In others, smaller family structures are spaced along riverbanks. Building materials are drawn directly from the surrounding forest. Palm thatch for roofing, hardwoods for framing, natural fibers for binding. Villages are often positioned near waterways, which function as transportation corridors in a landscape where roads are rare or impractical. Food systems are diverse and adapted to local conditions. Fishing plays a central role in many riverine communities, particularly during flood seasons when fish migrate into submerged forests. Hunting provides protein from mammals and birds, though methods and frequency differ between groups. Agriculture is practiced in many regions using shifting cultivation systems. Small plots are cleared, cultivated for several years with crops such as cassava, maize, plantains, and sweet potatoes, and then left to regenerate naturally. This rotational approach allows forest recovery while maintaining food security. Spiritual traditions are closely connected to the natural world. Many groups view rivers, animals, and forest features as inhabited by spiritual forces or ancestral presences. Ritual practices often involve music, body painting, storytelling, and the use of plant-based preparations in ceremonial contexts. These belief systems guide social conduct, land use, and community cohesion. They are not separate from daily life, but integrated into it. Social organization varies widely. Some communities operate through consensus-based leadership, where elders or respected figures guide decisions. Others have more formalized roles related to ritual authority or conflict resolution. Kinship networks define responsibilities, inheritance, and marriage patterns. While modern influences have altered aspects of governance in many areas, traditional authority structures remain significant in numerous territories. The arrival of colonial expansion, resource extraction, and missionary activity dramatically reshaped Amazonian societies. Epidemic diseases reduced populations in many regions. Rubber extraction in the 19th and early 20th centuries caused displacement and violence. In more recent decades, logging, mining, cattle ranching, and infrastructure projects have expanded into previously remote areas. These pressures have resulted in land disputes, environmental degradation, and cultural disruption. At the same time, many indigenous organizations have mobilized politically to defend territorial rights. In several countries, legal frameworks now recognize indigenous land claims within parts of the Amazon basin. These territories often overlap with some of the most intact forest regions. Research indicates that areas under indigenous stewardship frequently show lower rates of deforestation compared to surrounding lands, though conditions vary by region and enforcement capacity. It is important to avoid portraying Amazonian tribes as either isolated relics of the past or as uniformly threatened communities without agency. Many indigenous groups actively engage with national societies while maintaining cultural continuity. Some operate schools that teach both indigenous languages and national curricula. Others participate in regional markets, sell crafts, or collaborate with scientific researchers. Adaptation to changing circumstances does not erase cultural identity. The diversity among Amazonian peoples mirrors the biodiversity of the forest itself. There is no single Amazon tribe culture. Linguistic families such as Tupi, Arawak, Carib, Pano, and others represent broad groupings, each containing numerous distinct communities. Clothing styles, artistic expressions, agricultural techniques, and ceremonial practices differ significantly between regions separated by hundreds of kilometers. For those communities living in voluntary isolation, minimal contact is often a deliberate decision shaped by historical trauma. National governments and international bodies have established protected zones in some areas to reduce the risk of intrusion. Encounters with outsiders can bring disease and conflict, so policies generally emphasize non-interference. In examining the tribes of the Amazon, one must recognize that they are not separate from the forest's ecological story. Their agricultural systems influence plant distribution. Their fishing practices respond to seasonal flood cycles. Their oral histories encode geographic memory and environmental observation. They are participants in the Amazon's living system, not observers outside of it. The Amazon is frequently described as the most dangerous and most beautiful place in the world. For its indigenous inhabitants, it is primarily home. Their knowledge, resilience, and social complexity form an essential human dimension of this vast region. Understanding the Amazon fully requires acknowledging that its forests are not empty wilderness, but landscapes with deep cultural roots and ongoing human presence.